Hello again, everybody. This is Derek, and I'm coming back at you with another Wargaming and Miniature video. In today's video, we're going to continue on with our Mortem et Gloriam boot camp. This is actually the start of the boot camp. The first video was just a reveal or what's in the box of what you get in the Mortem et Gloriam box set. So this is the start of the boot camp. We are going to go chapter by chapter through this book in detail, and this serves a couple of different purposes. One, it kind of lets you as an audience know what you can expect out of the Mortem et Gloriam, but it also helps me learn the rules by explaining the rules. Plus, I will, when we get to the part where I'm showing off combat or movement or things like that, at that point we will put figures on the table and move them around, and I will roll dice and commentate about how certain mechanics work and whether I like it or dislike it or what have you. But primarily what this boot camp is for is to teach how to play this game. Okay, what is Mortem et Gloriam? Well, Mortem et Gloriam is a miniatures game that you play in any scale with any basing method. On a tabletop where you can simulate or represent ancient battles all the way back, classical ancient, like Spartans against the Persians, or Egyptians versus the Hittites, or all the way up to the Middle Ages. So I personally am doing 100 Years' War armies, as well as I have Carthaginians and mid-Republican Romans, Germanics, Gaelics, stuff like that. I'm also exploring Macedonian as well. Okay, so yeah, you have a wide variety of options when coming to this, playing this game. This book does not include any army. Well, actually, it does have like 4 army lists, but it's not really designed with those army lists. Those army lists are condensed. Those army lists were not intended to be used in games. It's just for reference. But if you need an army list, you can go to the Mortem et Gloriam website. They have army lists on PDF. You download the zip file and open it up, and you'll have all the army lists you'll ever possibly want. There's something like over 600 different army lists. Now, I say that, but really there's not 600 different armies, because this game has 3 levels that you play at. You can play at Pacto, Magna, or Maximus, and those armies each have, depending on you and your opponent, which one you decide to play at will determine how many figures are on the table. So you might have a mid-Republican Roman Pacto army list, and then you would also have a mid-Republican Roman Magna army lists, and you would also have a mid-Republican Roman Maximus army list. It's not one army list that they say this is Pacto, this is Magna, this is Maximus. What they do is they actually break it down by 3 different lists. You got the Pacto, Magna, Maximus. So that might be where they get the 600 plus army lists. Okay, so let's take a look at the introduction. In today's video, we're really just going to give you a general overview of what you can expect out of these boot camps. Okay, the rules that I have in front of me are the 2021 version. It's the reprint of the 2020 version. There was a version before that. I think it was 2016 or 2018, I think is when these rules came out. And they've already had a reprint, and this is the compendium edition, which basically means they've tightened up the wording. The rules have not changed. Okay, there are 12 chapters in this book. The videos, each video should focus on one chapter. So, but if it's a short chapter, we might put 2 in a video. Just stay tuned to the channel where you can see those titles. Okay, naming the chapters. We got Introduction to the Compendium. That's what we're going to be looking at today. And then we have, and probably Chapter 2, which is the author's objectives. And Chapter 3, which is player support. I think I can do all of that in today's video. Chapter 4 is an overview of MeG, basically just a summary of what the game is and how it works. Chapter 5 is figures, bases, and armies. Chapter 6, getting started. And then Chapter 7 is the pre-battle system. The pre-battle system, just as a quick summary, is what you and your opponent do at the table using the pre-battle system to determine what kind of terrain and how the battle is going to be fought. I think it's kind of a unique system. We'll be going over that. Then Chapter 8 is how you play a turn, you know, with like movement, the cards, the shooting, movement, etc. And then you have Chapter 9 is broken down into 2 pages worth of sub-chapters. But Chapter 9 is, point 1, is Command and Generals. Chapter 9.2 is Formations, which will probably combine those into a video. I'm just thinking out loud. Chapter 9.3 is Movement. Chapter 9.4 is Charges and your responses. Chapter 5 is the one you're all probably waiting for. Or, I'm sorry, 9.5 is Combat, which is, combat means melee. And then Chapter 9.6 is Shooting. And then 9.7 is Routes and Pursuits, which will probably roll that into the combat and the shooting. 9.8 is Cab, which is Kill a Base. And then Recovering Wounds, which you would think that that needs to be part of combat and shooting, but when we get there, we'll figure it out. 9.9 is Camps. 9.10 is Flank Marshes and Ambushes, which I would consider to be kind of a optional special rule because not every battle is going to have a flank or an ambush. 9.11 is Unusual Troop Types, you know, like elephants and artillery. Chapter 10 is Fog of War. Chapter 11 is a Campaign Rules, which I think is really cool. If you and a bunch of your friends have armies and you want to play an ancient campaign, you can do that. Talking about sieges and the campaign map, etc. Chapter 12 is Competitions, like when you go to a convention or a tournament. And then that's Chapter 12. And you'll notice that Chapter 12 is only 3 pages. So that tells me that they're not really focused on that. That's up to the campaign director or organizer to worry about stuff like that. This is just the rules and how to play the game. And then there's a number of appendices which talk about characteristics, like are you fanatical? Do you have combat melee expert? Are you expendable or whatever. And then they've got a glossary, which is good, just no big deal. And then Appendix 3 is printed armies. They're papers that you can cut out and learn to play with cutouts. And then they have ready-made Pacto armies. So those are the armies I was talking about. And then the quick reference sheets, which are all of these sheets thrown into Appendix 5. Okay, so that's what we're going to be going over in the boot camp. We're not really going to talk about the foreword or about the author. We don't really need to go into all this, but I do want to say that Simon Hall is a veteran. He's been a veteran gamer. He's been playing for over 30 years. He and I have a lot of the same sensibilities. A lot of his jokes and his references I get, so I can relate to a lot of it. He's in the UK. He's played DBM, Field of Glory, all different kinds of games, and I'm sure a lot of that has bled over into this set of rules. Okay, so introduction to the compendium. We're going to skim over some of this because it's not really related to learning the rules, and that's what this boot camp is about. But I do just want to kind of touch on some of it. Yeah, Mortem et Gloriam was launched in 2016. Mortem et Gloriam, in short, is called MEG, M-E-G. So if you hear me say MEG, that's what I'm talking about, Mortem et Gloriam. As of this writing, they said there's 650 army lists. Okay, so MEG Maximus. There's 3 games. Remember Maximus, Magna, and Pacto. Maximus is between 70 and 100 bases in your army. So you can only imagine how many figures that is if you have 3 to 4 figures per base. So that's, 300 to 400 figures. And that's played on a 6x4 table using 15 millimeters. If you're playing with 28 millimeters, you would need a ping pong table, a 9x5, which is what I have, but I'm not playing 28 millimeters. Games would, from start to finish, take approximately 3 hours. Now, I want to emphasize that I love the fact that this game can be played from start to finish in an afternoon. I've played a number of games where it takes all day just to resolve one fight. It said in the 2019 World Championship, there was 95 games played, and 78 were major victories. So that's approximately 82%. And they show it. They have a picture of Assassinate Army where it was 84 bases plus a camp. And it says it's roughly similar to sizes from past WRG 4th edition, DBM to Field of Glory. So they're very similar army sizes. Before I go on, recently I picked up a Field of Glory starter army, Roman, mid-Republican Roman, and I painted it and I compared it to a MEG Magna army, and it almost fit perfectly with a couple of different differences, but it fit really well. Okay, so that's Maximus. So that's a 3-hour game, which works really well in a 4-hour convention slot. Or if you were playing a tournament, personally, I think a 3-hour battle is too long because you want to have multiple games in the same day, right? So, but MeG Magna meaning large, it allows a great looking 28 millimeters to be used on a 6x4. But if you play 15 millimeter, which is what I do, you can play on a 4x3. They still have 10 to 20 units on the table, but because the game, you have less bases per unit, you're looking at about 40 to 60 bases. And they play to conclusion in about 2 hours. And a 2-hour game is really good for a convention or a tournament. And they've already had Magna competitions in the UK, Greece, Australia, and the USA. And then we have the same army, the Sassanid army, below, pictured from Maximus down to Magna. And the difference, it's 56 bases plus a camp instead of being here 84 bases. So it went from 84 bases to 56 bases. And then there's what's called the Pacto army. It's a very small game. Pacto meaning compact. But it still doesn't feel small. It's got the same 10 to 20 units, so the units don't change. It's how many figures are in the units that change. In this game, in this type of game, you're only looking at like 20 or 30 bases, making it great for travel, easy to build, i.e. purchase the models and paint. And a 15 millimeter game can be played on a 3x2 table. This is about 2 feet. So 3 feet is what you see on the screen here. We could play a Pacto game on this table right here. And the game's played to conclusion in about an hour and a half. And it says allowing 4 to 5 games to be played in a day. This works well in fast play campaigns where you have several map moves, and then they take the same army, the Sassanid army, and they break it down into a Pacto in the picture, and it shows it has 26 bases. So 26, 56, 84. It kind of gives you an idea of how many bases you would need. And Pacto games are not dumbed down. They're just, think of it like the ground scale is smaller. Okay, the CCC system, right? It's color, command, and combat. That's the CCC games color, command, and combat system. It gives a color-based system for movement and combat, and is designed for wargaming in an easy system. It takes the brain strain out of mechanics and allows a player to focus their mental energy on tactical decisions. Love that. I want to take the game out of the game so that I can focus on the battle itself. And that's what they strive to do. We're going to continue on with the author's objectives, because I think I can, in this first video, I think we can talk about introduction, author's objectives, and player support. I think I can do all of that. Okay, so the author's objectives, what he tried to achieve. He wants the length of the game to be under 3 hours. I love that, right? I have played games like Napoleon's Battles. I'm going to use that as an example, where we set up early in the morning at a game store. We had like 6 players playing, maybe even more, because it was a fairly large battle, right? And we would start early in the morning. And I say early, and I mean by we started moving figures around 9 a.m. We, at 11 p.m., we had taken like a 30-minute break for chow around dinner time. Lunch was eat as you play, but we did take about a 30-minute break for dinner. And by 11 p.m., the game was not finished, right? And so it was close. It was close to being finished, but it wasn't finished. So any game that tries to get a conclusion in 4 to 6 hours, I am down with. And this guy wants to get his games down to about 3 hours. And that's, the armies are approximately the same size as previous game systems. So he was using that as a reference. And he says 90 bases. Pace of the game. Make the game feel pacey at all stages. Okay. What does he mean by that? In the initial moves, in the shooting and fighting, and at the end of the game, or put another way, cut out as much of the dull time as possible. Meaning there's always something happening. You're always doing something. The turn leads to making outcomes resolve fairly quickly as situations occur, rather than have them last too long. Okay, yeah, like you'll play a game, you'll have a combat, and then what'll happen is the players will look up their tables, they'll try to figure out their weapons and their armor, and what kind, did I charge, did I not charge, do I have supporting elements, do I have a special ability that allows for impact, or all of that can be put into a game and increase the pace without the players having to take themselves out of the battle and into the game, where they got to look up charts and tables and figure it out and then roll dice and then go back into the battle. So what's happening is the players are, this is a psychology thing, where you're invested in your unit, and then you've got to stop your thought process, and now you have to invest yourself in the mechanics of the game. And then once you do that, then you go back to your units. And that back and forth is what he's trying to eliminate. That's what he's calling pace. Now, interactivity and excitement. Make the game come alive by being more interactive and have less time sitting watching someone else play. If possible, I wanted to create a near simultaneous movement rather than I go with everything, you go with everything, and of recent decades. In short, he created a game that is enjoyable as possible and keeps everybody on their edge. That, to me, I love that. I want to be doing stuff while it's your turn, you know? I don't want to just be sitting there with my thumb up my butt. Okay. Richness of army character. Okay, now this is kind of hard. Speaking as a game designer myself, he wants to make each army unique. He wants the Huns or the samurai or the Romans, they want them to be different. Not just another cavalryman in armor with a horse, with a bow. You know, the Huns, Ottomans, Sassanids, Mongols, Scythians, Byzantines feel different. Plus the 6 eras of Rome. Rome spanned, according to this, 6 different army lists. And he wants each one to feel different and not just a cookie cutter copy of the other previous Romans. Okay. Next, simple mechanism, yet a sophisticated game. Exactly. He wants it to be exactly what I want my rules to be: fast, fun, and playable. Make every mechanism as simple as possible so that you can take the brain strain out, but create a richness of them so that you can have a sophisticated game and simulation. Perfect. He wants the best of both worlds. That was part of his goal. I want 80% of your brain power focused on your choices as a general and 20% working on consequences. Love it. Okay. One last thing it looks like. Yep. He wants it to be modern and future-proofed. So he wants you to be able to use modern technology to get away from books and that rigid and cannot easily be updated, or lists and point systems that are frozen for eternity. Make full use of the web. Basically, his army lists are online, and they just recently updated. They're now a 2023 version, which I just recently got, and they are written slightly different. He wants to engage with that modern youngster who finds his phone and tablet as intuitive as he found a football. Last thing in today's video is player support, which we just talked about just briefly. There is Mortem et Gloriam website. You can go to there. You can download army lists. You can actually pick up the rules in PDF form, I do believe. You can, I think they even have a forum that you can go through and interact with other gamers if you have any special questions or anything like that. And they have a 650 plus army lists. But he also says each army list focuses on a time and an area. That's true. But he also wants to make a campaign. The first one is called Age of Attila. And so I haven't seen that, but I haven't really been looking for that because that's not the army list that I would be interested in. Okay, 2020 rule materials. This contains all the latest items for the rules and is updated on December 1st of every year. Also, there's articles. So if they write any interesting anecdotes or whatever, plus campaigns, you'll find a range of campaign settings, including the ones for 1066, the Scot Wars, the Slave Revolts, and they recommend that you create your own. Caesar in Gaul is in there. You should give it a try. He said that's his personal Caesar in Gaul. I think I'm going to get that one because of my Republican Romans. Okay, MeG Fantasy. Many ancient gamers are fans of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. We have a supplement called Fantasticus et Gloriam, which is playing fantasy games using MeG. So there's the Lidless Eye and the Land of Fire and Ice. So I don't know, if you've got fantasy armies and you want to play MeG using those, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to. I mean, a sword is a sword, right? And a shield is a shield. But when you start talking about magic and undead and monsters, now that throws a wrench in the thing. I mean, they have elephants. Okay, championships. Here you'll find details for 4 major championships. Europe, Australia, North America, and London. Videos. You can watch a number of videos like this one, but on their website they actually have official videos. And then they have a store where you can pick up the rules. But if you're interested in figures, you can go to Plastic Soldier Company and get their Ultracast armies in 15 millimeter, or they might even have 20s, but I think they're all 15s. They talk about the forum. You can go to the forum. Plus, they have a Facebook page. a WhatsApp group, and his email is in here, which I'm not going to share. But yeah, so there is quite a bit of support on his website. That's where I got all my army lists. And it seems like his intent for these rules were exactly in line with the kind of game that I'm looking to play. And if you are at a different level of your army building, you can definitely find the right army list for you. If you're watching these rules, you probably already have a penchant for the ancients or the medieval period, so you probably already have like an army for Field of Glory or WRG, DBM, DBA. If you do, you can almost guaranteed you can take those armies and transfer them over to a MeG army. All right, so in our next video, what we'll do is we're going to talk about the overview of the rules and talking about the game variants, Fast and Furious, leading your troops. We might even be able to get figures, bases, all included in that. Okay, maybe not. This is kind of... Okay, that next chapter is a little large. Okay, so in the next video, we'll just talk about the overview of MeG, and that should be a fairly short video. All right, I'll catch you in the next one.